in the Twin Cities. It can be Minnetonka, it can be Edina, it can be Woodbury, it can be Wayzata. Any place where there are beautiful homes, manicured lawns, BMWs in the driveway, country club memberships, children in private schools. No matter how nice the situation may look, behind many of those doors, there is a desperate, desperate situation going on. And that is what we are going to talk about today. Peggy, you had what most of us would think of as the all-American family. You had a lot of things going for you, yet just a couple of short weeks ago, your husband attacked you.
Yes, on October 17th of this year, my husband got me down in the bathroom and beat me, and I momentarily blacked out, and he broke my nose. And tomorrow I'll be going into surgery for that.
Was there anything that happened to precipitate this, to make this happen, or was there an argument? Had this been built up over a long period of time, or was it unprovoked?
There was an argument. There were a lot of arguments. I've only been married for a year and a half. There were arguments from the very beginning. There was a power and control struggle. As long as I cleaned the bathtub when I was told to, even in a restaurant, drank decaffeinated coffee instead of caffeinated. As long as I did what I was supposed to do, there wasn't a problem. But then when I didn't do what I was supposed to do, and there would be an argument, I would stand up for myself and defend myself.
But Peggy, the thing that is so hard for people to believe in this type of situation, first of all, not many people want to talk about this.
That's
when
right.
you get out into those neighborhoods, image is all important. So a lot of it is hidden. But this is not the image that we normally think of when we think of a woman being abused. We think of perhaps a lower income, less educated individual doing this. But that is not the case in this situation, is it?
No, it's not. My husband is very successful in a southwestern suburb community, very charming. He is very, very well liked by his peers. He has the power and control that he wants. He owns a business with another man.
Did you try to hide this from from everyone else?
I did not try to hide it. I talked about it with my family and with my friends. My friends had seen signs of verbal abuse, the power struggle, and I kept making excuses for it. He was tired, he was overworked, he was whatever he was that I thought. So I didn't try to hide it. I did try to talk to his family because it seems to be predominant in his family. It went on with his mother for 33 years. I tried to talk to his family, and I tried to talk to friends of his family because I didn't understand what I was doing wrong, and I wanted it to work because I really loved him.
Joanne, your ex-husband, what was your first impression when you met him?
Well, he was very charming, and we were both going to college, and he was very intelligent. He always got 4.0s, and he was very well liked by everyone that, at our college, even a lot of the professors and the president of the university that we went to. I was just very impressed with him. He's very charming. He was a real good friend when I first met him.
So is it the kind of guy that any woman, when she would meet, would say, hey, this guy is a catch?
Right.
Did you feel that way when you met him, that, hey, if I could get this guy, I'll be in pretty good shape?
Yeah, I was very impressed with him. He was very intelligent. I knew that he would go far. He was going on to get his master's degree, which he did, and he had real high ambitions.
Yet even though he had high ambitions and a lot of dedication and worked very hard in school, he did in fact abuse you.
Right. It had started out even while we were dating, there was the verbal abuse. He was very jealous. He was always checking up on me. And at that time, I found it flattering. I thought, he always was calling and checking up, what had I done all day. Very jealous, even of my friends. If I would spend time with my friends, he only wanted me to spend time with him.
Did you feel that when your husband really got angry, that he was angry at you in particular, or that he was just stressed out, that it was other things that were causing his anger and not you?
At the time, I felt it was me, but he kept me on like a roller coaster, because he would, if it wasn't one thing, it was another. If he would get angry at me if I would fall asleep before he fell asleep, or he'd get mad if if I didn't wake up when he was awake. It was constant roller coaster type of things that he would be mad at me about, and I was always trying to, to change so that I, wouldn't do what would make him mad.
You mentioned verbal abuse. Did he also physically abuse you?
Yes, he was physically abusive and also sexually abusive.
Also with us today, Charlotte Fetters, who has written a book concerning this subject called Shattered Dreams. Charlotte, you would be probably the ultimate example of what we're talking about today. Your husband did what for a living?
He was a very successful, powerful lawyer, and eventually the Chief Enforcement Officer of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
So within the very tough, very competitive community, political community, and getting appointments and that sort of thing in Washington, where you have to be top-notch and have to have just a stainless record, just beautiful record, your husband had succeeded. He was at the top.
Yep, he made it, and which was a very powerful position, too.
But he was not a success in all aspects of his life.
Not at home, no. He also, what I've just heard is exactly what happened to me. He verbally, emotionally, and physically abused me, and basically my children.
But how can a man who is so dedicated and strives so hard towards perfection and wants to serve other people, working within the government, how can he turn around and walk behind a door and close the door and suddenly start beating his wife, and in many cases his children?
I don't know what the answer is. Some people say as the power increases in the job that they have to continue the power struggle at home and the control at home. I'm one of the, I kind of say that that's not always a true argument, because you have very poor people who are out of a job that, also because of the stress, go home and beat their wives and their children. I don't know what the answer is there, but it definitely, I think it is a power and a control. The issue is control.
In this situation, as you have noticed, we have two of our guests behind a screen because it's very difficult. And in fact, in setting this show up and calling and trying to get guests to come on and tell their story, it's very difficult to find someone to talk about this. Why are people so much more reluctant to talk about it when they've been in a situation such as yourself? And why did you feel it was necessary for you to come out and be so open about what transpired in your family?
Well, I think one of the reasons, especially if you're upper middle class, you're very threatening to the husband's position. My case came out in open court. I really had no control over it. It was made public. I said what he did. He admitted what he did. It was open. Because of that, I had nothing to lose, and so that's the reason I've chosen to tell the story.
Physically hit you?
Oh yeah, black eyes. He beat me while I was pregnant, which is very common if in an abusive situation.
I mean, he attacked you when you were pregnant?
Right, with my first son.
And hit you? Hit your body?
Hit my abdomen, yeah, with his fist, and it was just quite, really, really angry. That's very common. Again, it gets into the jealousy thing.
At your most desperate point, when your mind was the most confused, what would you consider to have been your most desperate act?
Oh, it's embarrassing to even say. I hit a really low point where I was, the way I can describe it best is to say I was emotionally destructive to myself. I would have not committed suicide, but I just was driving myself crazy because he was driving me crazy. And at times I hit myself. There were times that I would sit
When you would hit yourself?
I would just whack my face and say, you're ugly, you're fat, and you're so stupid, and I would, hit my face. And I mean, I really hurt myself, not with fists, but I would slap myself.
Just because of years of conditioning?
Conditioning, and I mean, I hated myself because I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. I couldn't keep this man happy.
Did any of you, Peggy, Joanne, Charlotte, did any of you have a problem when you went to a doctor for treatment? And did you tell him the story that your husband had indeed beat you? And did people have a hard time believing it?
I went, the first time I ever had a physical episode, he broke my eardrum, I did not tell the doctor what had happened. The second time I did, he believed me, because that was during my pregnancy. The doctor believed me, but this was in 1968, and he just said, get out. He didn't say anything else. And over the years, because of that and because of the fact that he didn't really give me any guidance, I kind of felt like, again, it was my fault, and it isolated me.
You are.
My name's Susan Hadley. I'm the director of Womankind at Fairview Southdale Hospital. We worked with Peggy about 3 weeks ago when she came into the emergency room with her injuries. It has taken a while for the medical system to begin to make some changes where abuse is concerned, particularly in the South suburban area where it's a better kept secret. But
why is it a better kept secret?
I think that the family, the woman, has more to give up, has more to lose. As Charlotte said, that the husband is much more threatened by what's going on. And then you think of the children. You can put up and try to tolerate a lot for your family. And after a while, you realize that it's too high a price to pay.
But some members of the medical community, certainly not all, have a hard time, as I think many people do, have a hard time believing that this goes on.
Absolutely. I think we all have a hard time believing that it goes on. I'd like to say that we have been at Fairview Southdale now for 17 months. It's our anniversary today, and have worked with over 550 women. And that's just a clear indication that this takes place everywhere, not just in the stereotypical communities, but everywhere.
Vicki Dale is a support group facilitator, and I have to take a break here real quick, Vicki, but I just want to reiterate the question to you, because you work with a support group that deals with women who are in this situation. Why does this go on? Why, when everything appears to be so perfect and the people appear to have money, they have a comfortable life, why does this go on?
Glad to answer that, or at least try, because there's so many different reasons. Some of the women give the reason, as I sit back and look at them, part of the reason is low self-esteem, that what happens over a period of time is that there is no esteem left, no trusting in yourself, no trusting in anyone else. And no matter how wealthy the home is, or how much money the husband makes, you can have 2 beautiful cars in the driveway, have this marvelous job, but it's never enough. And no matter how high on the ladder, the man wants to get higher. And so he's always insecure because he compares himself with someone higher. So he doesn't have total power over his own life. And so he comes home, and there he can have power by battering, by physically beating or sexual abuse, emotional abuse, whatever.
What are the feelings of a man involved in this type of situation? In a moment, we will come back and we will talk to John, who battered his wife. He was a successful businessman by day. There was a different side to him at night. We will continue with Twin Cities Live in just a moment.
Why do I enjoy Alpine Lace, lower in sodium and lower in cholesterol American cheese? Because it's delicious. And I want to take care of myself now, not when I'm 50.
At your deli, delicious Alpine Lace American. Why wait till 50?
More 32nd anniversary specials from Tousley Ford.
And Tousley Subaru.
Every remaining 88 Taurus from our service fleet with air, automatic, and much more. Most with fewer than 6,000 miles, $99.95. Save $2,800 below their original price.
Save up to $2,800 on Subaru four-wheel drive wagons with air, automatic, and much more. 88s for $11,995. 87s just $10,995.
Open every night this week till 9 at Tousley Ford.
And Tousley Subaru,
White Bear Lake.
Just how orange does a Diet Minute Maid orange taste? Tourist. Diet Minute Maid orange with 100% NutraSweet. The orange.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Montgomery, inviting you to shop for a new home from your living room. It's the ERA Real Estate Showcase. Over 60 properties presented every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, right here on KSTP Channel 5.
$1 Down is back. That's right, Twin Cities. $1 Down will buy any new and used car at Southdale Ford-Yugo. Take this 84 Tempo, air conditioning, only $85 a month with that huge down payment of $1. Over here, 5-speed, 86 Escort, another big $1 down and $97 a month. So why not call 835-5555 Southdale Ford-Yugo, the home of a $1 down.
There's a very special group of people in the Twin Cities these days. They're young, professional people who are sacrificing something of themselves to work together for a special cause. The group is the Metropolitan Society, and the cause is multiple sclerosis. And this year, they have once again banded together to put on a fundraiser the Twin Cities may never forget. It's the second annual Bachelor Classic, and on Wednesday, June 15th, Twin Cities Live will introduce you to some of last year's bachelors and their dates, and we will hear firsthand details of their once-in-a-lifetime evening. We'll also take a sneak peek at some of this year's bachelors as they describe the exciting date packages that they will be putting together for the event, with all the proceeds, of course, going to MS. Some of the most eligible bachelors in town are going to be with us. It's a show you won't want to miss. For free tickets, I hope you'll come down and join us in the studio audience. It should be fun. 641-1298. Welcome back to Twin Cities Live. I'd like to introduce to you John now, who was a successful businessman, owned a couple of businesses, John?
Right.
In the community, what was your image?
Very high, a lot of visibility.
Everybody knew you,
Right.
respected you, thought you were a good family man?
Yes,
Did you have children?
yes.
During the day, you had this sparkling image, but at night, there was a darker side.
Yes. Last March, the walls kind of fell in on me. A lot of things started to fall in. My wife and I had had several confrontations, arguments, lots of verbal. But it always occurred over, after we'd been drinking, both of us drank. I smoked marijuana once in a while. She had been going through counseling and so forth, and the counselor said to her one day, a year ago, that, well, let it pass, things will change. In March, we'd had a major blow-up and so forth. I came home, and it happened to be March 13th, which was a Friday, and I came home, everything was gone of hers. But there was a note there that said if you wanted some help, this would be the number to call. Domestic abuse. And this project in Minneapolis, I'd never heard about it. And we had discussed it, but I never wanted to listen to it. Throughout our marriage, which was for 5 years and so forth, we'd had several confrontations.
What do you mean by confrontation?
Arguments, severe arguments, pulling hair, spitting, slapping. She had
So there was physical hitting and...
Yes, lots of abuse and so forth. Always in my business, I had my image to uphold. She would not go to work and stay home in some cases.
How did you rationalize this in your mind?
Well,
when during the day you were doing what everyone thought was right, you were working hard and you were dedicated, but at night you were having these blow-ups and confrontations. I mean, did you realize at the time that...
Well, most of the time, my wife was in theater, so she had rehearsals at night. I'd work during the day, and I'd sit up and wait at night for her, and I'd be drinking and basically incoherent at the time we'd get together. But I'd always accuse her, who were you with, what were you doing, things like that.
Was there a need for power in this situation?
Indeed, I had a lot of power and control and so forth. And one thing that I found out, and I agree with everything that has been said to date here, but one thing that in my processing through the DAP program, I was able to step back into my earlier life and so forth, that it wasn't through alcohol, but alcohol related to accelerated this. The drugs accelerated it. But really, the way I was brought up had a significant impact on the way that I was reacting.
In what ways? I mean, was there abuse in your home when you were growing up?
Very much so. I left home when I was 16 because I was so severely abused.
Is this common, Peggy, Joanne? Were there problems in your homes when you were growing up? Instances that you can look back on now that perhaps led to your being in this situation?
There was a lot of verbal abuse and some physical abuse in my home. When I turned 18, and I had threatened from the age of 16 that I would leave home when I turned 18, and I did. I was then married for 10 years and in a relationship that there was not abuse. I made up my mind that I would never live that way. My husband, my present husband's family, the father was abusive to the women, beat the mother and the 2 daughters. The 3 sons were verbally abused, but I don't believe that they were physically abused at all. And my husband saw this. My mother-in-law, my sister-in-laws pretty much kept quiet.
So there was a history behind this.
A definite history.
Charlotte, I know in your situation that not only on both sides, not only in your husband's situation when he was growing up, but in your situation, there were some factors that led to the confrontations that led to you getting involved in a situation such as this?
Nothing abusive, nothing physically abusive. My father was the center of my life, and I had all sisters, and he just, his office, he's a doctor, he was, his office was in our home, so he was a real center of our life. And we tried to keep him happy because he had a temper. He never hurt us, but he did kind of control.
Never could say no to him?
No, no. And so I just I mean, no one said you must obey a man when you grow up, but, you know, we just did. We just took, did what Daddy wanted. And my husband's family was not, and there was no alcohol anyplace. My husband's family was more controlled by his mother, which most people feel that he has, you know, rebelled against this control of his mother.
Good morning. You're on Twin Cities Live. Thanks for holding on the line. Go right ahead.
Hello. I guess what I'd like to stress right now is I was in a battering relationship, and the #1 thing that hurt me was the emotional and psychological effects. There were many times when I would much rather have been hit rather than receive the treatment that I got.
That
Charlotte,
is,
go ahead.
statistically, more women feel that the psychological abuse is far more damaging to them than the physical abuse, and damaging to the children. I always, I've had calls over the past month from people who say, I stay with my husband because he's such a good dad, and I say if the father is beating the mother of these children, he's not a good father.
Vicki?
Most of the women that come can get over that come for therapy or come to support groups. They can get over the physical. They can go to a doctor and normally get taken care of. But it's the invisible scars that are the ones that carry through.
That remain in the mind.
That remain, and no matter how much therapy, they can recover, become gentle and forgiving maybe sometime, but there are always playbacks sometime in the future.
John, did you, when you were verbally abusing your wife, did you feel you were inflicting more pain on her, that you would use that more as a weapon, or was it more physical abuse?
Yes, it was.
It was the verbal more?
It was a verbal. It was things of the past. It was things about the kids, some physical things about her or her job or her...
Things that because you were married to her and knew her very, very well, you knew would go right to the core of her heart and break it.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi. I wanted to say, too, that I think there's a lot of systems control. I was listening at Charlotte talk about things, but in relationship to the fact that society teaches men that they have to control every situation, and so therefore imposes that control. But also the various communities that we're talking about here today also have a commitment for keeping quiet and keeping things because this is the community's image. And I think we need to look at that because we need to have the communities respond to such battering. And even in the case in New York where people responded, I think there's another part of the legal system that needs to come in and take action because battered women can't tell you to arrest this man. Battering is a crime and these men should be arrested. and some form of interruption needs to happen to end violence in the lives of women.
Why can't the women tell someone that this man is beating me, go to the doctor, get the proof, and then have the guy arrested?
A woman is in her home is being tortured. She is being whittled away, self-esteem being totally whittled away. The man is proving to her that no one will believe her. He's also proving to her that he has control of the neighbors. Neighbors won't come to her rescue. The system will fail her because of his being out in the community. Everyone talks about how prestigious and charming, and women believe that their husbands are able to charm the community. And as the police respond, they leave a lot of times without doing anything, so it just reinforces the husband's control of the woman.
And unfortunately, in many cases, and there have been many cases both here locally and in New York, that the abuse doesn't only stop at the wife, and that in half of all cases of abuse of women, it carries over to the child.
Yes, but the key point I really want to make here is that the system has to be a response. And I think we need to stop blaming the woman and telling the woman it's your self-esteem. Yes. We should stop telling her, and we should do something. If battering is a crime, legal action should be taken, and it should be removed from the woman. I was in Monticello just recently, and I witnessed an abuse. I tried to have the man arrested, and the police refused to arrest because the battered woman could not bring herself to say she was hit. And even though I was a witness to that, no action was taken. Our laws need to change.
And we will continue in just a moment. We'll be right back.